So, House of the Dragon Season 3 just came out. It got me thinking, which of the three Game of Thrones shows had a best start? So, I looked at every single Season 1, and we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive, and then rank them at the very end. And to be clear, I'm only looking at the Season 1 as a whole, not what it builds to. So there's going to be no spoilers for anything other than the Season 1s of each show. Alright, here we go. Game of Thrones Season 1 probably has the biggest challenge for several reasons. Because not only does it have the challenge of bringing us into this brand new world, but the story is just so massive. It's bigger than House of the Dragon. It's definitely bigger than A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. There are literally so many characters in the show, like Jaime Lannister, who in the very first episode fucks his sister and with the power of post-nut clarity shoves the child out a window. The thing that many people get wrong about Game of Thrones is that it's not a fantasy show first. It's actually a political drama that just happens to have fantasy tropes in it. But it's never the main focus of the show. That's part of the draw. It relies on the characters and the storytelling and the writing to pull you in instead of just pure spectacle. Season 1 is almost like a murder mystery story, trying to figure out what happened to the former Hand of the King, Jon Arryn, with our main character Ned Stark taking on the task of unraveling this mystery, while also serving as the new Hand of the King. Ned Stark is this righteous, honorable man who is loved by all and is the Warden of the North. Now Ned, he has a pretty big family. He has 2 daughters, Sansa and Arya, 4 sons, Robb, Bran, the kid that Jaime pushed out the window, Rickon, who's basically useless, and a bastard son named Jon. What's nice about these early episodes is that all the main characters, besides Daenerys, they're all just in one location. It makes it so much easier to follow while the viewer gets used to these new people that we're being introduced to. Also, I just want to say, hats off to all the actors in the show, because every single one has done a phenomenal job. There's not one person I can point to and be like, they are doing a poor job. I feel like the standout has to be Peter Dinklage, who plays Tyrion. Because Tyrion, this entire season, he kind of wanders around. But every character he interacts with, he absolutely steals the show. He turns everything into gold. It's phenomenal. I think the biggest example of this is when he goes to visit Jon Snow.
Why'd you read so much?
Look at me and tell me what you see.
Is this a trick?
What you see is a dwarf. If I had been born a peasant, they might have left me out in the woods to die. Alas, I was born a Lannister of Casterly Rock. Things are expected of me. My father was the Hand of the King for 20 years.
Until your brother killed that king.
Now, Jon, being a bastard, he's entitled to nothing. He can inherit nothing. So he wants to join the Night's Watch, which is basically as far north as you can possibly go, and you're there for life, and you're basically on this big ice wall. It's pretty cool. Now, Tyrion, he wants to join them just so you can say he pitched off the edge of the world. Now, when Tyrion leaves, Jon's storyline, it gets a little bit more dull. It's not boring per se, it's just there's a noticeable drop in quality. Almost. Especially when Sam joins.
I yield!
Now, I'm not a big fan of Sam. I feel like he kind of just whines a lot and it kind of gets on my nerves.
I don't like high places.
You can't fight. You can't see. You're afraid of heights and almost everything else, probably. What are you doing here, Sam?
Like, it's every scene he's in, he's just whining, he's complaining, it's annoying. But on the topic of dull, by far the worst storyline this season has to be for the characters who stayed in Winterfell. For example, Bran. All Bran does is complain.
I know a story about a crow.
I hate your stories.
He actually just complains the entire time. Granted, he can't walk anymore, but still. It gets old, and it gets old fast. And then you got Theon. Theon's like that one friend who shows up at the party. You're like, oh, hey, what's up? And then you talk to him for like 10 minutes. You're like, all right, please leave. And then you got Robb, who's basically the new Warden of the North because Ned's off being the new Hand of the King. And it's just not that interesting. But I will say, it does have a very important purpose. There's an attempt made on Bran's life, and the assassin uses a dagger that was stolen by Tyrion, which sets up Tyrion getting kidnapped by Catelyn, who is Bran's mother, and then that spirals into an oncoming war that's being built up.
A lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of the sheep.
Like I said earlier, Tyrion, he kind of wanders around, but it's such a perfect way to show this beautiful world that we've been introduced to. Westeros, it feels so massive, it feels so lifelike, and it's so awesome that it kind of sucks that in these early seasons, the camera, it's kind of stagnant. It doesn't really move too much. The shots are very, very generic. It's nothing too spectacular. It's not till later in the show where you start seeing a little bit more liveliness in each episode. And it's not till the other two shows I actually realized one thing. The armor, all the armor that the knights wear, it's really lame. And I only bring that up because in the other two shows, it looks fucking awesome. Like I said before, Game of Thrones is a fantasy show second, but still, it is a fantasy show. Like the Lannister soldiers, they look awful, they look boring. Anyway, I want to talk about my two favorite plot lines, starting with Daenerys. So Daenerys and her brother Viserys, they're both children of the previous king, the Mad King, before Robert and Ned rebelled and Robert took the throne. Viserys, he's the worst.
You send this whore to give me commands. I should have sent you back her head.
And he sells his sister to Jason Momoa and hope that Jason Momoa will give him his army to take back the Seven Kingdoms. So that didn't work. But Jason Momoa then declares his love for Daenerys and their unborn child. And he says that he will win back the Seven Kingdoms for them. Sail across the narrow sea and take the Iron Throne. And this speech, man, this speech was pretty hype. Maybe not that part. But the rest was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Oh, fuck. So, Jason Momoa, he was too busy ore farming, and he gets cut. And that cut later gets infected. Daenerys, trying to save him, she uses magic, but she unknowingly sacrifices her unborn baby. But I want to come back to their story at the very end, because the season ends with them, so I think it'd be appropriate to end this chapter with them. Anyway, I finally want to talk about by far the best plotline in the entire season. King's Landing. The actual murder mystery. It's extremely entertaining to watch Ned try to keep King Robert safe, his best friend, while everyone else around him is scheming and plotting, including Queen Cersei. Robert himself is probably one of the most fascinating characters in the entire show. Because, well, yes, he's seen as a comedic character.
Your mother was a dumb whore with a fat ass. Did you know that? Look at this idiot.
If you look past that facade that he brings on, he's really tragic. We see this several times. You see it where he grieves over Ned's sister, Lyanna.
Did you have to bury her in a place like this? She should be on a hill somewhere with the sun and the clouds above her.
You see it when he's telling the war stories. You see it probably my favorite scene in the entire season when he's talking to Cersei.
You want to know the horrible truth? I can't even remember what she looked like. I only know she was the one thing I ever wanted. Someone took her away from me. And 7 kingdoms couldn't fill the hole she left behind.
Robert wasn't actually in love with Lyanna. He was in love with the idea of being with her. He never really knew Lyanna Stark. And because of this image he made up in his own mind, he ruined something that potentially could have been great with Cersei. Because she admits she did love Robert, but he didn't love her back. Because he was so obsessed with the ghost. Finally, on his deathbed, you see him being honest to Joffrey. You know what? Actually, yeah. No, Robert is by far my favorite character this entire season.
Start the damn joust before I piss myself.
The slow build-up of Joffrey becoming the major antagonist was just played out masterfully. Ned realizing that Joffrey was a bastard who was born of incest.
Brother's worth 1,000 of your friend.
Your brother? Or your lover?
Weird, don't get me wrong, but fantastic writing. Now, in fantasy shows, we are usually led to believe that honor allows us to prevail, to win. That's how our heroes normally win, with honor. So when honor actually backfires on Ned, it's heartbreaking.
Stripped of all titles and powers, he would serve the realm in permanent exile.
But it's okay, Ned, he's still our protagonist. He'll probably just take the black, meet Jon at the wall, come back.
Sir Ilyn, bring me his head.
No! The death of Ned Stark is what sold me on this show. Funny enough, it also sold HBO on the show, but you don't kill the protagonist unless it's like at the end of the series. But anyway, you don't kill him, let alone at the end of season 1. Another thing about Ned's death is that at the beginning of the series, Ned Stark, he executes a man who ran away from the wall, and he tells his son that the reason why he killed him is because he's the one who sentenced him. So the fact that Joffrey is the one who told Ned that he will die, he sentenced him to death. So the fact that Joffrey wasn't the one to actually swing the sword says a lot about the character. But this setting up Robb to become our new main hero is nothing short of genius.
Every one of them. I'm gonna kill them all.
Back to Daenerys. I know I keep saying Jason Momoa, but the character, his actual name is Khal Drogo. The spell did work, it kept him alive, but at this point all he really knows is kind of fine dining and breathing. Daenerys, seeing that Drogo isn't the same man he used to be, decides to put him out of his misery. Now during the funeral, she brings 3 dragon egg fossils that she was gifted during her and Drogo's wedding, and she brings it into the fire. And at the end of it, she emerges with 3 baby dragons. Dragons that haven't been around for well over 100 years. And that's season 1 of Game of Thrones. Wow. Okay. That was a lot. Oh hey, look at that. Cool. House of the Dragon. It was such a fun way to re-enter the world of Westeros. It helped even more that the whole entire story took place 172 years before the actual main plotline of Game of Thrones. So, not only do you not have to watch Game of Thrones to understand House of the Dragon, but you can also just kind of forget about, the ending of Game of Thrones. One other thing that I think helps House of the Dragon is that the cast of characters, it's a lot smaller. And majority of the show, it takes place all in King's Landing. You don't really have to go too far, because you're dealing with a Targaryen family. It's just them. And once again, oh my god, are the characters, they're just so compelling. Every single actor in this show, once again, nails it out of the park. There's not one person I can point at and be like, you're doing a bad job. Maybe I can point at some casting decisions that are a little iffy, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. King Viserys, by far, is a standout, and Paddy Considine should have won an Emmy for his performance. Viserys, he's under a lot of stress, for several reasons. One reason being, he technically wasn't really supposed to be the king. His cousin, who happens to be a woman, she was the eldest living heir of the previous king. But because she's a woman, the realm didn't want her as queen, so Viserys ended up becoming king. Viserys, he also has to follow up one of those peaceful times within the realm, ever. But the real issue arises when he's unable to actually produce a male heir. He only has one child, and that child is Rhaenyra, a woman. So that means the current heir to the Iron Throne is his brother Daemon, who's played by Matt Smith and also is just doing a great job.
10 years you've been king, and yet not once have you asked me to be your hand.
Why would I do that?
You never really know what Daemon's thinking. The one thing you can always get out of Daemon is that he loves his family. Daemon, being his second son, he tries to make a lot of decisions to make a name for himself. But he loves his family, and he loves his niece. Whoa! Viserys, while he finally ends up getting a son, he ends up losing the baby and his wife shortly after. And after hearing Daemon celebrate, he decides to do something that's never happened before. And he names Rhaenyra the next heir. Rhaenyra, she ends up being put in this arranged marriage with her cousin Laenor, who is gay. Then Sir Criston Cole ends up murdering Laenor's lover at the wedding because he's homophobic. Just kidding. He's actually mad at Rhaenyra because she wants to be friends with benefits and he wants to marry her. Okay, dude. So, somehow Cole manages not to get charged with murder. This show, it does something new that we didn't see before in the first season of Game of Thrones. We have time jumps. And there's a few of them. And they can be kind of jarring. Because the first 5 episodes, we see a younger version of Rhaenyra and Alicent. Alicent, by the way, is Rhaenyra's best friend, or was Rhaenyra's best friend. And the daughter of the current Hand of the King, Dr. Connors, who manages to manipulate Viserys into marrying her instead of the better match. Yes, the child. Anyway, to switch to the older actors, it took a little time to adjust, because, well, the younger ones, they were just so good. I don't want to sound too negative, because the older actresses, they did a great job too. I don't want to take it away. They really added wisdom to the characters. It was just that we were just finally getting used to seeing these characters before, and then it was kind of just taken away. One thing to both the show's benefit and also critique is its emphasis on spectacle. I, like most people, I'm a sucker for cool shit. Now, while the show does look fantastic, look at this joust. It's beautiful. It looks a lot better than the one in Game of Thrones. But there is times where you can feel that the plot armor, it's getting a little heavy. For example, Daemon going by himself into battle and surviving this arrow attack, it's insane. Now, I'm willing to let this go. You know, he got shot twice, I guess. Something did happen to him. But the crab feeder, the guy who he's been at war with, he has grayscale. Which basically turns your skin to like the stone-like thing. It also makes your mind go insane. Also, it's highly contagious. So yeah, you know, the design, it looks pretty cool. But no one would follow this guy. He's got a disease that has no cure. You have no control over your mind, basically. When Daemon chops him in half and is covered with his blood, how did he not get infected? There's no cure. But, I mean, I can't talk about this show without talking about the dragons. The beauty, it's amazing. And I just love the fact that each dragon has their own personality, has its own look, the way it moves. It's really cool. It's better than the one in Game of Thrones. I feel like the dragons we do see, they look kind of the same. Technically, they're different colors, but, I mean. So what actually happened during the time jump? Well, a lot of children were born. Alicent and Viserys, they had 2 sons and a daughter, meaning that there's now a rival to Rhaenyra's claim to the throne. But Viserys, not wanting to upset Rhaenyra, decided not to name Aegon, his eldest son, to the Iron Throne, though everyone wanted him to. Viserys, he has also grown incredibly ill due to him cutting himself on the throne constantly, which is a nice way to show that he has a kind heart, but he does not have what it takes to actually be king and to make the hard decisions that are good for the realm. Because while Viserys' reign was peaceful, he lacked a willing to take control and only would guide the realm into one of the darkest paths in its history. Also, the young versions of Alicent and Viserys' kids, they look like they should be playing the opposite role. Like, young Aemon looks more like older Aegon, and vice versa. Young Aegon looking more like older Aemon. But we do see who Daemon marries, the girl that Viserys was supposed to, before choosing Alicent. And we see that the married life, it mellowed Daemon out a little bit, because the one thing he does care about most is family. Rhaenyra herself, she has 3 kids. None of them are Laenor's, believe it or not. Instead, they're all bastard sons of this guy, Sir Harwin Strong. He and his father end up burning alive. This happened because Harwin's brother has a thing for Alicent's feet. I mean, I don't judge, but it seems a little extreme. But this gets Alicent's father back to being Hand after he got fired for not having the realm's best interest. I don't really know how he got his job back. Viserys was pretty angry at him. Like, you think the job would go to, like, literally anyone else. You're really saying there's no other person suitable to be Hand of the King? Like, Daemon at this point, I feel like he's proved himself enough to be a decent Hand. But then again, I guess Viserys, he kind of just wants to play with his little model utopia thing. So, maybe he just doesn't care anymore. So, like, boys being boys, you know, they play pranks sometimes. Aemon, he doesn't really have a dragon yet. So his nephews and his brother dress up a pig, and they say it can be his. Aemon ends up claiming the biggest and oldest dragon left alive. But that dragon used to belong to Daemon's wife before she killed herself. Anyway, the kids get so fucking mad about this, they slice his fucking eye out. Honestly, this was probably just done so you can actually tell who the fuck's who, because everyone has long blonde hair. Plus, eye patch, it's pretty cool. Daemon and Rhaenyra decided that the two of them should actually get married during a walk that definitely happened at night, and it was definitely not filmed during the day with the filter just on it. That makes it hard to see. So they fake Laenor's death and get married. Next time jump. There's more children. They have more kids. Oh my god. So the thing is, Rhaenyra and co, they get summoned to court because a little thing going on about her bastard sons, and she's still claiming that they're legitimate, but no one believes her because, I mean, look at them.
Her children are bastards!
This is all played by Dr. Connors because it helps him get his son Aegon onto the Iron Throne because Viserys' health now is like in critical condition. He basically has no idea where he is. He's constantly on milk of the poppy, which basically is like a drug that numbs pain. And he and Alicent are basically ruling the kingdom by now. Rhaenyra, in a final plea before her case, begs her father to rule in her favor because she knows she's not going to win this. Now, all hope seems lost when Viserys enters the courtroom in a very inspirational and powerful scene, taking the throne, and then ruling in Rhaenyra's favor, ruling that her children are legitimate. Viserys, he has one wish. He wants to eat dinner with his family before he passes away. And he did that night. He passed away after they all had dinner together. The makeup department and special effects really did an outstanding job because, wow, he looks disgusting. But in Viserys' last moment, he thought he was talking to Rhaenyra, but he was actually talking to Alicent, and he mentioned about Aegon being king. Alicent hears this, and her first thought was, oh, he must be talking about our son. But he was actually talking about the very first king, King Aegon the Conqueror. This all begins a coup, getting Aegon onto the Iron Throne. Criston Cole once again commits murder that no one talks about. Aegon gets crowned king very quickly before Rhaenyra is able to stop it. Now, Rhaenyra ends up sending a message to other lords of the realm to help her get what is rightfully hers. She sends her son Lucerys to deliver a message, but is beat by Aemon. He's still pretty pissed about losing his eye, so he demands that Lucerys remove one of his. Lucerys, being a nerd, doesn't take Aemon up on his offer, and he tries to run away on his dragon. Now, like that one creepy uncle who waits in the corner of the room with the shotgun that we all have, Aemon ends up toying on him on Vhagar. And like the uncle, he goes a little too far, and Lucerys ends up getting eaten whole. I do like how this is clearly an accident, and that the dragons aren't just these mindless animals, but do have emotions themselves, and they're going to do what they want to do at the end of the day. And that's how House of the Dragon Season 1 ends. A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, when it was first announced, I felt a little iffy on it. I didn't really know much about the novellas, but all I saw was that HBO was just doing another Game of Thrones show. I thought, alright, this is just going to be a cash grab, no soul, no life. And I think it's safe to say, I was wrong. A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, it's by far the shortest of the three shows. It's the least amount of characters. The screen time, it's very short. It's 30-minute episodes and there's only 6 of them. But I do have to say, the pacing of the show is very good. Now, our story follows Sir Duncan the Tall, a hedge knight who just recently lost his quote-unquote father figure / the knight that actually trained him, Sir Arlen. Now, the two of them are heading to a tourney to, maybe pick up a few bucks, get some extra jobs. So after burying Sir Arlen, Dunk decides, he's going to go and enlist in the tournament himself. Now, on the way to the tournament, he runs into this little bald kid, Egg, who's pretty sassy. I'm not going to lie, it's a pretty sassy kid.
You don't look to be a knight.
I think it's fun to see how Dunk is trying to intimidate Egg, but clearly he's not very good at it, and you can kind of just see through it. Now, one thing that the show does better than the other two shows is that it's beautiful. Now, I thought House of the Dragon looked fantastic, but oh my god, A Knight of Seven Kingdoms just blows it out of the water. Every shot is like a piece of art. Not just like modern art, like actual real art. It's beautiful. Every single shot, it's like a painting. I can't get over it. It's fantastic. The lighting, everything. Part of the reason why it looks so good is because the tourney camp that everyone's staying at, it's a real set. It's 360 degrees all around. Now, when Dunk arrives, he needs someone to vouch for him because he can't just enlist in the tournament by himself because no one knows who Sir Duncan the Tall really is. He's a brand new knight. So he somehow manages to find his way into a castle where the Targaryens are at, which is a little convenient because you'd think that not only just the prince, but his entire family would be a little bit more secure. Prince Baelor, the Hand of the King, he's supposed to be like one of the greatest kings to be. So he actually does vouch for Dunk, saying that he remembers Sir Arlen, and so Dunk's in the tournament. But this is where our story takes a little bit of a turn here. The prince's nephew, Aerion, he's assaulting the puppet girl. So Dunk, being a knight, he steps in and he saves her. Now, Dunk, he put his hands on the prince of the realm. He put his hands on a Targaryen. And it's during the time that Dunk is protecting the girl, you actually find out that Egg himself actually is Aerion's brother. Egg is a prince. But because he's a knight, he's entitled to something called trial by combat, which basically means if he wins, he's innocent, he's free to go. But Aerion, because he's a little bitch, he wants it to be a 7-on-7 tournament, which has never been done in like 100-something years, 200 years, I forgot. So Dunk, he recruits the friends he made during the first few episodes to be his champions and fight alongside with them. Now, Dunk's actually one person short.
And the no true knight among you!
So, surprise, surprise, the great Prince Baelor comes in and decides to take Dunk's side, thinking that he actually is in the right in protecting the girl. And his brother, Maekar, is not very happy about it.
You've taken leave of your senses. This man attacked my son.
And Maekar, I love Maekar. He's seen as this grumpy guy, but in all honesty, he has the right to be angry. First of all, his youngest son, Egg, he ran away. Daeron, he's a drunk. And then Aerion, no one really likes him. He doesn't even like him that much. He's just protecting him because it's his son. So the show also plays around with the idea that Dunk actually isn't a true knight. And there's evidence on both sides. Like when he's asked to knight someone, he hesitates a little bit. Now it can be seen as like him not knowing the words to actually knight someone, or he's just trying to protect them. Now I'm of the belief that Dunk actually isn't really a knight, because I think it's a better story that the best knight isn't truly a real knight. But this leads into, by far, I think one of the best fights in all of Game of Thrones. It's gritty, it's real, there's no music, the armor is extremely important. You hear the characters breathing heavily, getting exhausted, getting tired, and it gets pretty brutal at some points. I love the atmosphere of the smoke to kind of hide some of the imperfections, because a lot of the fighting, it's done in one shot. Not all of it, obviously, but it's very smooth and choreographed. Now, it's Game of Thrones, so, of course, Prince Baelor ends up dying. He gets hit back in the head with a mace by his own brother. Now, granted, it was an accident. Maekar didn't mean to kill Baelor, but it did happen. And like I said before, armor is very important. And it's because of the armor is why Baelor died. Baelor wasn't wearing his own armor. He was wearing his son's armor. So it didn't fit him properly, and that's probably what led it to cave in easier than it would have normally. Now the show ends with a little bow. Dunk decides to take Egg on as a squire, and then they ride into the sunset for more adventures. Alright, it's time to rank these shows. Now, remember, I'm going off purely as just one season, not what the show's building up to, because I don't think that'll be fair, because I think A Knight of Seven Kingdoms would be a big disadvantage that way. Granted, it's a smaller story. So, let's start off. Going at 3. Number 3. House of the Dragon. Don't get me wrong. Still a great season of television, but there's just a lot of little mini things going on in it. Like the plot armor, it starts getting a little bit egregious at some points, and the love of spectacle really hinders the art of the storytelling. Next up, Game of Thrones. That's right, I'm putting Game of Thrones at 2. The death of Ned Stark is probably still like one of the best things I've ever seen on TV. But how big the cast is in the show, well, it helps in the long run. But as a pure season 1, at points the story does slow down a little bit, and it's like, okay. Like, every time that we go back to Winterfell, I just get bored. I hate Bran. So, obviously that means A Knight of Seven Kingdoms is at 1. I think the fact that the story is pretty simple is what helps it as a pure season 1. The chemistry between Dunk and Egg is out of this world. The casting is phenomenal. The kid who plays Egg, he's awesome. The actor's great. Great job. So, yeah, that's all. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe. Please leave a comment of your own rankings. I read all the comments. So, yeah, no, that's all. Adios. Oh, one thing, though. I just want to say one thing.
Finish the damn books, George!